Look at that tiny basket. Let me just, should I flip this? Let's flip it. There we go. Yes. Now we're cooking with Crisco. No, that's not right. There we go. What's going on, Jeremy? Hold on, let me just share this. Hey, what's going on, Darian? Jeremy? I'm Ari Temkin. This is the Spurs. This is AT&T Center. This is where the Spurs play. Right behind me on those tiny baskets. West Coast is here. Greg Zuniga is watching. I'm Ari Temkin from ESPN San Antonio, but all of the people that I'm talking to right now know that, so it's all good. Chris Bennett's liking it. Hey, everybody, hit share if you wouldn't mind. That'd be fantastic. Spurs lose tonight 102-91 to the Rockets, but, I mean, the Rockets are the second best team in the NBA easily. And the Spurs are a team trying to find itself in the middle of the season. I mean, that's, that is, why would I blame you, Chris? That's the truth of the matter. The fact is, the Spurs were able to cut the Rockets' 20-point lead down to 6 points in the fourth quarter. With Darren Hilliard playing meaningful minutes. I haven't even heard of him. I had to look at, he's number 24. I thought I was watching Richard Jefferson out there. Then I looked it up. He's one of their two-way players. He's probably played a handful of games this year. I've seen him this year. I'm saying tongue-in-cheek. But, I mean, that's the reality for the Spurs. And it's kind of amazing that the game was as close as it was, considering the guys that were playing the minutes that they were playing. I mean, and that's, especially when you're talking about a team like the Houston Rockets, that is, I mean, they're the second best team in the NBA. And they're now, 5.5 up on the Spurs for the 2 seed of the Western Conference. Andy's watching. What's going on, man? Andy, do you have any good Super Bowl random stats for me? Just asking. Random question. I don't know. I'm Ari Temkin. I host a talk show on ESPN San Antonio. It's called The Hard Line. It's 11 to 2 every day. And we talk a lot of Spurs. Behind me, you can see this tiny basket that is not regulation size. Go ahead and post your comments. And we can just get the show on the road, get the show going. Can I see the comments? Let's start there. Can somebody post a comment so I can make sure that I can see the comments? That way, there's no reason to proceed if I'm struggling to see the comments. So let me just get rid of that. So just somebody post something. There we go. Greg, thank you for saying hi. I appreciate that. All right. So we've confirmed. Zach's watching. Zach, how are you? We've confirmed that I can, in fact, see the comments. Thank you, Greg. Chris says yo. All right, cool. We're ready to go. All right, so Spurs lose tonight. And when I do these, traditionally, because there's 82 freaking games, I'm not going to focus. I will talk a little bit about this game since it was, yes, I can dunk on that hoop. What do you, maybe? It's actually, it's my reference point. That's actually 10 feet. That's actually 10 feet. I want to thank everybody for joining us. I'm Ari Temkin. This is Phantom, Facebook's live sports network, Facebook's sports network. Make sure to hit share, like, comment, because that's what's going to drive the show. Andy says, what up? Zach said, can you dunk on the hoop? Of course I can. That's barely 2 feet tall. After the game, I thought one of the most poignant things that was said from the Spurs' vantage point would be, that they're just so inconsistent from a minute standpoint. Who's playing? That's the problem with this team. Danny Green in the post-game press conference was talking about, that they're just so inconsistent on offense, and it's so hard to find a rhythm. And basically was saying that, that there's so many different guys playing, in and out of lineup, playing different minutes. They've had injuries, guys, breasting, that, it's just so hard for this team to find anything of consistency. And that's why you're seeing them. They've won back-to-back games once this entire year so far, calendar year. It's not that long, right? It's a month old. But, for a team that's has the third best record of the Western Conference, too many moving parts. That's what Andy says. Too many moving parts, and that was what Danny Green said after the game, basically. Like, they don't know who's going to start, who's going to play on a nightly basis. It's hard to get in rhythm and have guys be consistent that way. And look, it's February. It's February 1st. That's okay for it to be like that. It's okay for this team to still be looking for its rhythm. And I think, the truth of the matter is, when they get Kawhi Leonard back and Rudy Gay back, they're going to be better, but it's still going to take time for them to figure out the type of team that they are. Because the type of team that they are right now is not the type of team they were the last time that Kawhi Leonard played meaningful minutes. And that's the truth. they're a completely different team. And so when Kawhi comes back, what kind of a team are they going to be? I mean, Greg, you're right. Greg Zuniga says it's incredible they're third of the West. Surprised not eighth or ninth. But they unfortunately the drop off to go to 2 or 1 is it's closer to go to 8 to 9 for the Spurs than it is to 2 or 1. But it is. It's amazing. I mean, that's the thing about this game. And I know Spurs fans are disappointed in an actually televised game. You want to beat Houston. The Spurs cut the lead to Houston, who is the second best team of the Western Conference. The Spurs cut the lead against the second best team of the Western Conference to 6 points in the fourth quarter with Darren Hilliard on the floor. That's incredible. I mean, does anybody know who Darren Hilliard is? Because I didn't. I had to look at the roster and see, and then I looked up and he hit a shot, and the Spurs were down 6 in the fourth quarter with him on the floor to the Houston Rockets, who are the second best team in the NBA. Who's better? There's no team in the East that's better, right? So, I mean, and obviously this isn't the type of team the Spurs projected to have. So, I mean, it's a testament to the system. It's a testament to the consistency. A big piece of it, obviously, is that some teams don't play their guys up and down their lineup. The Spurs do. They constantly do, so that guys are ready to go and fresh. So, when Darren Hilliard does play meaningful minutes on another team, he's not going to get any shot. So anytime he would be called upon, he wouldn't be ready to go. What's going on, Mike Henderson? How are you? Jeremy Mandel commenting. If Powell isn't going to attempt a field goal until the fourth quarter, then he doesn't need to be out there. Perhaps the Spurs can raise a "we cut it to 6" banner. Jeremy, do you know who Darren Hilliard is? Do you not think that was impressive? I mean, they were down by 20 with Darren Hilliard and Bryn Forbes and Davis Bertans playing meaningful minutes. And look, I'm not trying to break down Bryn Forbes and Davis Bertans, who have played well in parts this year, but I mean, we're talking about Chris Paul and James Harden and the second best team in the NBA right now. Now, it's February, and as we all know, as we watched in the playoffs last year, Houston can beat the Spurs all they want in February. Great. James Harden hit some big-time shots tonight. It's February. He didn't hit those big-time shots in the playoffs last year, and that's what Spurs fans will say, and rightfully so. And that was what Pop said after the game, too. Chris Bennett says, Hilliard, is he from the Austin Spurs? So the way the new G League works is they can have 2 players, the Spurs, on 2-way contracts. So basically, the Spurs, NBA rosters used to be 15 players per roster. Now they're essentially 17 players per roster. So Darren Hilliard he's a 2-way player, and Derek White, the rookie, is the other. I believe he's the other 2-way player. No, maybe another one. But basically, it allows them now. It used to be in the D League, that there weren't 30 teams so one match for each team. Now there's 30 G League teams, and basically every roster in the NBA, they get 2 extra spots for guys that they can basically call up back and forth between Austin and Hilliard's one of them. Apple at D Tower, Apple at D Tower, Harden killing us. Yeah, I mean, and that was what Pop said after the game. Pop was basically like, look, tonight talent won out. It was close, and their talent took over at the end, and I can live with that. That's exactly, not verbatim, but pretty close to what he said after the game. And that's, Chris Paul, James Harden closed the game out, which is what they're supposed to do. And when Kawhi Leonard comes back, LaMarcus Aldridge and Kawhi Leonard are the guys that are going to, they're the guys that are going to need to be closing it out. So, that's the takeaway from here is, where are the Spurs in connection? Where are the Spurs relative to the Rockets? Well, they're not close, but it's a good thing that they're going to have the opportunity to make some roster moves by, adding a Kawhi Leonard and a Rudy Gay to the mix. It was announced that Gay will be back after the All-Star break. Pop again was asked. Tom Worsborn of the Express News, bless his heart, had to ask the question about Kawhi to Pop after the game because he had to. Of course he did. Is there a timetable for Kawhi Leonard yet? Pop's answer was, well, every day he's getting better. So, it's ultra cautious from both sides. We don't have to talk about what the story is altogether. We've been over this 100 times. But, where are the Spurs relative to the Rockets right now? Rockets are a better team. But Kawhi Leonard and Rudy Gay are coming back, and the Spurs have to figure out the type of team they're going to be. The Spurs are inconsistent. They're not a very good basketball team, yet they're the third best record of the Western Conference. And I mean, they are. So, like, by all accounts, they shouldn't be where they are, but they are. And that's obviously a testament to their system and their players that buy into that system and their coaching and the wits and what they're able to do on a night in, night out basis. I'm Ari Temkin. I host a talk show on ESPN San Antonio, and I'm live on Phantom taking your questions on the Spurs. They lose tonight to the Rockets, but we're talking, broad, general Spurs things. Jeremy says, or perhaps kidnap Kawhi's uncle. I think it might take more than that. Mike Henderson says, I'm a Rockets fan living in SA. Rockets are real. Do I have to scroll to see the rest of that? Rockets are the real deal. Well, I think he's trying to say the Rockets are the real deal this year. And I mean, it's hard to disagree, Mike. I'm, again, having just watched the Rockets lose to the Spurs in the playoffs, or not just watched, but having watched the way the Rockets just lost to the Spurs last year, Harden disappeared. Overtime of Game 6, Kawhi Leonard isn't playing, James Harden disappeared. And then in Game 7, in Houston, James Harden disappeared. So, until I see something different, it's hard for me to believe that I will see something different. And that's been the MO for Chris Paul his entire career. Now, I think it's more legitimate for Harden than it is for Paul. Now, here's what I'll say about Paul, or Harden, Henderson. Having said all of that, they've never had a complementary piece like a Chris Paul that could potentially take some of the wear and tear off of Harden that he has sustained throughout the course of his career with Houston. That's fair. That you could say, well, maybe he broke down at the end of the series last year because he basically has led the league in minutes the last 3 years, or 3 or 4 years, or has been top 5 in minutes the last 3 or 4 years. Plus his usage rate is so high. So not only is he out there all the time, but he's playing. He's constantly the focus. So yes, they finally have a piece that can potentially take some of that night in and night out pressure off of Harden. But I'll see it when I believe it with James Harden in the playoffs. Greg Zuniga says, I wish we could have picked up Chris Paul. Why? Because then you're not going to get LeBron, and you wouldn't have if you got Chris Paul. What's kind of annoying, Jordan DeLugo, what's on, buddy? What's up, buddy? What's kind of annoying is I don't know, I can't see the full comments, which kind of sucks. And this is like, what are they? It's a portrait or landscape. So, are you guys trying to break this down?
No, I'm trying to get by you.
Oh, no, yeah, go ahead, man. Do not work around me. I mean, tell me. Yeah. Do what you gotta do, man. Don't let me get in your way. Cool. Sorry. All right, let's reset. What's going on, everybody? Sorry. I mean, there are people like standing around looking at me. If they're trying to clean up and do things, I don't want to just be standing in everybody's way. I'm Ari Temkin. Go ahead and hit the like button, the share button. Hit your comments. They think I'm Manu. It'll be funny, Greg, when people watch this that don't know me and they're like, oh, this guy, he's talking about the Spurs, he looks just like Manu. He must be a huge Manu fan. And that, yes, that's true. But my friend Jeremy Mandel doesn't like when people point out that I look like Manu. I think he's offended by it. What I'm kind of offended by is that I can't see all these comments. Why does Facebook do this? That's what I want to know. What's going on, everybody? I'm Ari Temkin. We're live on Phantom. This is Facebook's sports network. Hit like, share, comment, post. But I guess you're going to have to keep your comments like 4 words because would it be weird if I switched mid-show? That would probably be a little awkward, right? It sucks to not be able to see the full comments that everybody's saying. Anyways, I'll try to make it out. Spurs lose tonight 102-91 to the second best team in the NBA. I think there are no moral victories in sports, but David says we need to make a trade. David, for who, what, why? I am being 100% serious when I say the Spurs, any salary they're trying to take on. I mean, it's, who knows how much there is a likelihood. Monroe's going to go to, look, Tyreek Evans or Monroe, come on. Tyreek Evans or Greg Monroe, those guys aren't getting you above Golden State. I mean, plus Monroe's going to New Orleans. That's where he's from. It's part of the reason why New Orleans made the trade with the Bulls today to get Mirotic. They were trying to clear up the space, the roster space the Pelicans were to get Greg Monroe. In fact, I talked about that with my buddy Jeremy Mandel on my show today on ESPN San Antonio. We talked about the Spurs maybe signing Greg Monroe, and then moments after we talked about it on the show, this Bulls trade went down, and then the Woj, the NBA reporters, were like, this was done so that Greg Monroe could sign with New Orleans, which is where he's from, and this is where he wanted to sign. So, what's going on, Greg Auerbach? Dude, did you guys all see Greg Auerbach's awesome Philadelphia Eagles Lincoln Financial Field parking lot shotgunning video? If you haven't, you need to check that out. You could see it on Phantom. It is freaking hilarious and awesome and really cool. There's some... Greg, was some of that staged? Some of it kind of seemed staged. It looked authentic, but I was like, it almost seemed a little staged. But it's an awesome, awesome video. It's just a bunch of chicks shotgunning. It's a shotgunning beer challenge, Lincoln Financial Field before the NFC Championship game, and Greg Auerbach. That's a sweet video. Thank you, Carlos. See, and I don't know if he was watching when I said that, but Carlos said you look like Manu Ginobili, which is something that I said that people say all the time when they see me. And the truth is, we're basically the same size, and we're basically the same at basketball as each other, skill level. And I have more hair, so there's that. And only one of those three things is true. No, Greg, Jeremy Mandel was not drinking bourbon on the show today. However, I'll get to your comment in a moment. Jeremy, of course, Greg. Thank you. Zach said I have better hair. I mean, that is certainly... Alicia Cunningham, how are you been? You're frustrated as a Spurs fan? You should be, but at the same time, know that there's a reason for the source of frustration with the way this team's playing. And that's, when I do these on Phantom, I like to do kind of broad. Instead of... They play 82 games. There's a lot of meaningless basketball they're playing. So I like to do... Dale Hart's watching what's going on. I'd like to do more broad stuff, big picture Spurs stuff. I know, Nick. My friends say I do kind of look like David Blatt. It's unfortunate. I like to thank Ginobili. Brent Holmes, what's up, buddy? I still got to stop by your shop and get the juice. So big picture things with the Spurs is, just look at their distribution of minutes, and I'll get to some of the comments of some of the players that kind of talk about these kinds of things. But you've got down the stretch, Darren Hilliard, I've talked about this before. Bryn Forbes and Davis Bertans, and amazingly, the Spurs have won a lot of games with those guys, not Hilliard, but Bertans and Bryn Forbes playing down the stretch, but not against the second best team in the West. But again, this isn't the roster that Pop envisioned, that the Spurs envisioned. They haven't won back-to-back. They've won back-to-back games once the entire calendar year of 2018. And I think it was like December 28th, before the new year, that they had won. They won 3 games in a row. So look, and Danny Green said after the game, the obvious about the Spurs is that when you've got all these different guys playing different minutes and guys in and out of the lineup and they're resting, it's just hard to find consistency on offense, and that's where the Spurs' problem lies. They are still, and I joked with Danny Green after the game, so they're still second in the NBA in defensive efficiency. Alicia Cunningham says, plus we can't seem to win on the road, which is funny because they wore the black road uniforms at home tonight. So, makes sense, right? They wore the road uniforms at home tonight and they lost. It was like they were playing on the road. It's the uniforms. It's not the road, it's the black uniforms, but they're awesome. And yeah, David, you need Kawhi. Obviously. But so the Spurs are second in the NBA in defensive efficiency, which is one of the it's one of the best metrics to define how good a team is defensively, which is not the easiest thing to notate. Finding defensive metrics that are accurate and to properly address how good a defense is. Defensive rating seems to be the better one. It's a long way to say they're really good defensively, and yet the 2-time Defensive Player of the Year has played 9 games. So, their problem is offense. It's clearly their offense. And so after the game, Danny Green was doing an interview, and I said, you mentioned how good you are, how good the team is defensively, and is Kawhi just not that good? Is he just not that good of a defender? Is he overrated? Because you're second in defensive efficiency without the best defensive player in the league. And he laughed and he said, I guess we got a few other guys that can play defense too. Which, Danny Green's a pretty good defender. Danny Green, he's kind of a whipping boy for Spurs fans, but he's one of the most underrated or underappreciated players I mean, he's a career 40% three-point shooter, which is awesome. He is still one of the premier wing defenders in the NBA. And the Spurs are paying him $12 million a year. It's crazy. It's criminal that Spurs fans don't like Danny Green and talk about how they should trade him. Career 40% three-point shooter. He's still one of the best wing defenders in the NBA. At $12 million a year. Most teams pay $20 to $25 million a year for guys like that. Seriously. Well, all right, maybe 20 at top end for when the cap blew up and guys were getting crazy deals. Wally Anderson says if we can get Monroe or someone like him. I mean, look, guys, I'm just not a fan of getting new guys to get new guys. And truthfully, again, Greg Monroe is going to New Orleans. He's from there, and I think the Pelicans made the moves they made today, or the move they made today, in order to free up the roster space to sign him. So I don't think they're going to add Monroe, but, look, I don't know how realistic it is to think the Spurs could end up with LeBron James, but, they have to be conscientious of the type of contracts they're going to be taking on in pursuit of that. In pursuit. Ricky Temkin. What's up, buddy? How's fatherhood treating you? How's Charlie? She is adorable. Will LaMarcus be in Austin in Saturday for College Game Day? Probably not. Will LaMarcus ever do anything in Austin, Chris Bennett? Like, does he even recognize the fact that he went to UT or not? Honestly, he seems like he does not rep UT at all. I don't know. You tell me. You would know. I mean, Durant just spent all this money on the basketball program. I don't think I ever see LaMarcus repping UT. David Elijah William Smith says, hey, David Elijah William Smith, thank you for joining us. I'm Ari Temkin. Do you think Aldridge doesn't pass enough? No, I mean, look, a Spurs' major advantage against a team like Houston is their size. LaMarcus. And I'll tell you this. LaMarcus Aldridge won them the Houston series last year. And I said that after the series because when the Spurs play Houston, they get a lot of times that Harden has to match up with LaMarcus. And that is an easy 2 points. That's as easy as it gets. And that, I thought, in the Houston series last year was one of the biggest reasons James Harden seemed to be worn down by the end of the series. So, yeah, in a game like tonight, how many shots did Lamar? He didn't take enough shots. You don't want him passing. You don't want him passing out of those matchups. There is no defensive player on Houston where you don't try to dump the ball into LaMarcus and just let him. He can score on literally every player that Houston has because they just don't have a quality defense. They've got. So in a game like tonight, no. I don't think LaMarcus has to pass more. LaMarcus took 15 shots. Danny Green took 18, scored 22 points. And when you play Houston, you have to beat them with your style, playing with your bigs. That's the way to beat them, right? Like the Spurs are one of the slowest teams in the NBA. They play at the slowest pace. A lot of teams like Houston and Golden State, they get up and down the floor, and and they want to run. Spurs, they want to slow you down. And the Spurs are playing a game from the '90s because that's the style they have to play with because of their personnel dictates that. So you want LaMarcus taking a lot of shots against a team like Houston because they don't have the size to match up with him down low. Tim Morellis says, just didn't seem like he wants it from Tim. I'm going to have to apologize because there's sort of an editor error, I guess, is the way to say it, or my error, because I can't see your full comment, so I don't know what the finish was. Kyle Flowers, though, my buddy Kyle Flowers, what's up, buddy? Who's your pick to win the West? Golden State. He's my pick to win the West and the NBA championship, the Golden State Warriors. Yeah, Tim just didn't seem like he wants it from Tim. All I see is just didn't seem like he wants it from Tim, ... And I apologize. User error. I'm stupid, and I can't see full comments. So, I think 8-9 words, then maybe another. It's like a typewriter. You got to type out a few words. Type out a few words. That's kind of what we're dealing with here. Sort of a typewriter. What you can do is you can typewrite your comments and then mail them to me. I'll get them eventually, and I can comment on them. Let's see. Carlos, Spurs need someone like Fareed. Tim said time to time. Doesn't seem like he wants it from time to time. Who, LaMarcus? What about Pop? Does it not seem like Pop wants it from time to time? Who are the guys he's playing down the stretch? I mentioned before the Spurs in the fourth quarter cut the lead to 6 with Darren Hilliard on the floor. It's a guy that's playing in Austin. Played a handful of games with the Spurs. I mean, so you're going to question the effort for LaMarcus Aldridge. What about questioning the effort from your head coach, who's, I mean, not playing his best players in the most crucial times, which obviously is by design. I'm not necessarily criticizing. I kind of am, but I mean, right? Like, if you're going to criticize LaMarcus Aldridge for not trying, a lot of times it seems like Pop's rotations aren't really trying either. By the way, I'm Ari Temkin. This is Phantom. Make sure to give the page a like, and also give this post a like and a share, because that's how it works on Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg controls what you see, and the more you share and like and comment, the more other people will see it. And it makes Mark Zuckerberg happy to see people comment and like and share. So he lets other people see it then. Thank you. Appreciate it. Did I get serious there? Trade Pop for Kerr. That's a great trade. Agreed, Greg. Alicia Cunningham, Spurs will not go for LBJ Pop culture. Yes, they will. Later. See you, Greg. We just can't get consistent shooting. Yeah, and that, Wally, that was, so after the game, Danny Green was talking to the media, and you know, I asked him, you know, the inconsistency as an offense of this team is that because it's just so difficult, you know, night in and night out to get consistent minutes, to know who's going to play. What up, Marlon? To know who's going to play. You know, so you know, my question to Danny Green after the game was, you know, is this team offensively challenged because there's so many different lineups, so many guys playing different minutes? And he's yeah, absolutely. And he admitted on a nightly basis, you know, we're not sure who's going to start, who's going to play, what kind of minutes we're looking at, who's going to rest, who's in, who's out. And he was like, all right, of late, we've had more consistency with the roster, but I mean, the Spurs' issue right now is offense. They are offensively challenged. It's the number one reason why they haven't been able to string together multiple wins multiple times over the course of the last month. You know, that's the stat, right? They have only won back-to-back games twice or once this calendar year. So basically a month. They've gone a month, and they've only won 2 games in a row once. So they've won one, they lost one. They won one, they lost 2. They won one, they lost 3. They won one, they lost 1. They won 2, they lost. I mean, so that's what it's been like for them this month. And they're still third in the West. They've got, you know, Darren Hilliard playing minutes for them down the stretch against the Rockets. And, you know, it's just the way it goes. So we know the Spurs haven't even scratched the surface of their potential this year. And it's enticing to think about making a trade, signing a guy, and it's like that every year. And Michael, I appreciate you asking. No, I don't think they're going to get Greg Monroe. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's going to New Orleans. He's from New Orleans, and the Pelicans made a trade today with the Bulls to clear up the roster space to sign him. So I'm pretty sure Greg Monroe is going to sign with them. But, like, I mean, just think about, like, does Greg Monroe make them better than Golden State? Does Greg Monroe put them over the top? No. And I'll tell you this, too. You know, they're playing a slow style, right? The Spurs are. They're the slowest pace in the NBA. Well, when Kawhi comes back, they're not going to do that. They want to be more up-tempo. They want to play faster at times. Greg Monroe is going to stop that. Greg Monroe is not going to run the floor like a LaMarcus Aldridge. Because remember, Aldridge can play inside. What up, Big Al? Aldridge can play inside. Everybody make sure to check out the Edge of Philly Sports with Al and Michael and Joey. Yeah, so, like, you know, you add Greg Monroe, and it plays more into the style they're playing right now, but it doesn't play into the style that they want to play eventually, which is a mix between, you know, the big ball style and Kawhi's masterful play. Feel like we're missing that interior defense. Michael, the Spurs are second. They have the second best defensive rating in the NBA. The Spurs defense is fine. The Spurs are missing Kawhi Leonard, who is every year the best player in the NBA when he plays, best defensive player in the NBA when he plays, and they're still second in the NBA defensive rating. It's insane. Get the Coyote to play. Are there any realistic trades they can make? No. Tim says ETA for Kawhi's return. So Pop was asked about that after the game. Thank you, Marlon. No, and again, look, I don't again know how realistic it is for the Spurs to sign LeBron James. I don't know how realistic it is. It certainly seems to make sense. I think LeBron's going to leave Cleveland. I don't know where he's going to go. Lakers make sense, I guess, but better chance to win championships here, obviously. So let's say the Spurs have a chance to sign LeBron this offseason, right? They can't be adding contracts. They can't be adding, they're going to have to unload deals they have in the offseason to make it work for LeBron. So if they think there's a shot that they have at LeBron, they're not going to add contracts. They're just not going to add guys. Now, granted, Greg Monroe, be adding him for the rest of the season. Different story. What's the ETA on Kawhi? So Greg Popovich was asked that after the game. Was asked, is there a timetable for Kawhi yet? That is verbatim what Tom Moore's one of the Express News asked. Is there a timetable? What a ridiculous question. Like, this guy's really good player. He's been out the entire year. He's going to come back? Pop's answer was, well, he gets better every day. So the timetable for Kawhi is he's getting better every day. I'm Ari Temkin at AT&T Center here in San Antonio. Spurs lose to the Rockets tonight. Was it 102-91? Spurs are offensively challenged. That's their problem. They're missing top 5 player in the NBA. I don't have to tell you that. Adam Mazel. What up, buddy? And they have the third best record of the Western Conference, and they had Darren Hilliard. Who's that? They had him playing meaningful minutes down the stretch against the Houston Rockets, who are the second best team in the NBA. So, Liz, what's going on? I know, Spurs fans are annoyed they lost the Rockets, but it's funny. There's so many Rockets fans here, and they're so boisterous. And if I were a Spurs fan, I'd just look at them and be like, dude, it's February. We've been through this before. Charles, great question. Charles Stewart asks, who is Hilliard? It's a fantastic question. Question I asked myself when I looked out there and saw number 24 and thought, I didn't think Richard Jefferson still played for them. But I think, so I made this point earlier, and I think it's worth repeating. There was a stretch. The Spurs cut that lead down to 4, or down to 6. Darren Hilliard, he of the Austin Spurs, hit a shot. It cut the... Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, good night. Liz is watching us from the Philippines. Big Spurs fan in the Philippines. That's freaking awesome. So Darren Hilliard hit a shot over here to cut the lead. Yeah, he's a two-way player. You're right. He hit a shot over here to cut the lead to 6 in the fourth quarter against the second best team in the NBA. A guy that's playing the majority of the season for the Austin Spurs was playing in the fourth quarter for the Spurs against the second best team in the NBA, and hit a shot to cut their lead to 6 in the fourth quarter. So I'm not saying it's a moral victory. I'm just saying, Pop's playing his rotations. He's sticking to his minutes regiment. There's a difference between Lane Lewis. There's a difference between, overextending guys and playing them meaningful minutes in a game you're trying to win on national television against Houston, and playing Darren Hilliard those minutes, and and all that. Are you guys waiting for me? Are you guys done?
No, we have one more.
Oh, okay, cool. I was like, you're not waiting for me, right? Okay, cool. All right. So, look, it's February. Spurs are going to play. They're going to stick to their minutes regimen and play, the minutes they're going to play with those guys. Darren Hilliard's going to get minutes, going to get a run. And that, it's funny because it sounds like I'm complaining about it. But that's why the Spurs are able to win games when their best players don't play. That's the truth. And it's a really important thing to know. That sometimes in sports you have to win the battle, you have to lose the battle to win the war. And that's one of these kind of instances with the Spurs where, Spurs Pop, night in and night out, is willing to play all 12 guys that dress for that team. And there are very few teams in the NBA that have that. So when you're a player on the end of that bench and you're on a team that you're never going to play, you're not going to be ready to go. So what Pop does is he always keeps his guys engaged, 1 through 12. Everyone's always engaged because they know at any moment they can be called upon to play in the fourth quarter against the second best team in the NBA. You think about that. Darren Hilliard's playing in Austin, and then a moment later, Pop thrusts him in the lineup to play in the fourth quarter against the Houston Rockets. That's a losing the battle to win the war kind of move by Pop. Why? Because it's not going to win you a game against the Rockets. Because of course not. Because James Harden's going to rain threes from half court to win the game, which is what happened. but it's February. It'll win you games in Utah. It'll win you games in Phoenix. It'll win you games in Detroit. It'll win you games in Charlotte. It'll win you games when you don't have Kawhi Leonard and your LaMarcus Aldridge is resting. And that is my greatest argument for LeBron James coming to the Spurs. LeBron can come here, rest, not have the wear and tear on his body, and the Spurs will still win. LeBron rests in Cleveland and they lose by 30. LeBron plays anywhere else and he rests and they lose by 30. So LeBron can come here and not sustain the wear and tear on his body that he has throughout the course of his career. And I appreciate that, Wally. And, you know, and the Spurs aren't going to be giving up much, like all the other teams that he'd be playing for. And he knows that. I mean, famously, Pop didn't fly Tim, Tony, Manu, his most important players to that game in Miami when LeBron knows that and saw it firsthand. And, they competed pretty well without their three most important players that didn't even fly. That was the game that the NBA basically came down on the Spurs and Pop for doing their resting policy. So LeBron knows that. And the other thing, too, is beyond that, and that's just one little piece to the Pop puzzle. But the other part to it, too, is, there isn't a coach in the NBA that LeBron could play for that would be his equal, except for Pop. There's no coach he's ever played for that he could respect. Spoelstra maybe, but you don't think so, Marlon? Look. A year ago, if you would have said there's a chance LeBron's signing with the Spurs, I thought you're crazy. I believe it's closer to happening now than I ever believed that. I don't know what that is, but here's the deal. LeBron's not going back to Cleveland. He's not. He is not going back to Cleveland. He is going somewhere else. So where is he going? Lakers? Okay. Cool. He's not trying to win championships then. You're not beating Golden State. Not beating Golden State with the Lakers team they have in LeBron. They're good, really good, probably the second best team in the West. He's not going to Golden State either. Where's he going? I can believe the Lakers because, and I said this, on my show earlier, because then, you're talking about lifting back up a storied franchise in sports back to its rightful place. That would be the end of his career, right? But it wouldn't be winning championships. So, and I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it just it's starting to make sense to me, and it's weird, it's bizarre. Dan Gilbert has his eyes on Trae Young. Isn't Dan Gilbert selling the team? Yeah, Jerry Roush says I think LeBron would love to play for Pop. And we've never seen LeBron be so gratuitous to Pop. LeBron tweeted out a happy birthday wish to Pop. He's never done that before. And who knows what that means? And he has a tremendous amount of respect for Pop. LeBron James is going to Portland. That seems to make the most sense, obviously. Portland, Phoenix makes a ton of sense for LeBron. Charlotte, because he loves Michael. He'd love to go win for Michael in Charlotte, and so where else is he going? All right, anybody else have any other questions for me? I appreciate everybody joining us late into the late evening hours. I'm Ari Temkin. I host a radio show on ESPN San Antonio. If you're in the area, make sure to check it out, 1250 AM, 94.5 FM. You can also watch me here on Phantom. Every Tuesday night, a little show we call Steak, Bourbon, and Sports, where we talk a little Spurs, talk a little steak, talk a little bourbon. My buddy Jeremy Mandel, he hosts the show with me. And then I'll do a lot of these Spurs post-game wraps. In the playoffs, I'll be doing them every night. And we're also going to be getting an NBA show going on, too, on a Phantom here. So make sure to like the page, facebook.com/Watch Phantom. Chris, I could. It's the perspective. It's 10 feet tall. It's just the perspective. I could dunk on that. Charles, thanks from Australia. I appreciate you joining us from Australia. What time is it in Australia right now? And it's like Tuesday, right? And it's summer. Only 2 of those 3 are correct, or 1 of the 2. So we had Liz is from the Philippines. Charles is from Australia. Yeah, post your comments on where you are right now. That's cool. Chris Bennett's in Austin. That I know. Jeremy Mandel's in Alamo Heights in San Antonio. That I know. Who else is watching? Where are you guys all watching from? I know Liz is watching from the Philippines if she's still watching. Australia. Chris is from Australia. Marlon, are you in San Antonio? It's not Friday. Oh, it's Friday in Australia. Yeah. It's Friday in Australia. Corpus. Michael Moore is in Corpus. Ryan McQuaid says, could Spurs get Anthony Davis and LeBron in the offseason from the 210? No. Kyle Flowers, I forgot you're still watching, buddy. You're in Austin. I knew that. Nick Filato, you're in Jersey. Northeast San Antonio, Andy. Colombia. How long? So when did you move to San Antonio? Almost Friday on the EC. Converse, Dora. What's going on, Dora? How are you? By the way, I'm Ari Temkin. I live in San Antonio as well. I'm broadcasting from the AT&T Center. Just about 30 miles from where I live. Probably 20. Friday here. Yeah, it's in the Philippines, Liz. It's, we figured this out before, but it's Friday morning. It is it's just pushing 11 o'clock here in the Central Time Zone in San Antonio, Texas, where the Spurs have lost to the Houston Rockets. The Spurs fall to... What's their record now? Let's see. They are 34-20, the Spurs. The Rockets are 37-13. The Rockets are second in the West. They're now, I think, Spurs are now 5 games back of the Rockets. 5.5. But look, I mean, you know, it's funny how it's like you watch the Spurs with Kawhi, and then you watch them without him, and you just can't watch them again. I mean, they're just not fun to watch as much when Kawhi Leonard's not playing. So come back soon, Kawhi, because the Spurs aren't that much fun to watch when you're not playing. Especially games like this, where it's on national television, they're playing a team they're going to play in the playoffs. You know, we're still a long way away from the playoffs, but you get a good taste of what it's like. You know, but look, it doesn't matter who they're playing, and this is basically what pops it out to the game. No, I don't. Adam, I don't. I mean, people seem to think Houston has a chance. I don't think anybody has a chance to beat Golden State this year. Nobody. But yeah, when the Spurs have LeBron next year with Kawhi and LaMarcus, and I'm not. I think Klay Thompson and Draymond Green's deals are up this year, so they'll still be good. Now, if those guys take less to come back, that would suck for the rest of the NBA, and they should just cancel the season if those Draymond Green and Klay Thompson take less again to come back. Those guys need to just get paid and go somewhere else and not stay with Golden State. Klay Thompson and Draymond Green. And they'll still be great, Golden State. They'll still have Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, and they'll still be great. And maybe they'll keep one of them. But they won't be as good. And so the Spurs have LeBron and Kawhi and LaMarcus. They'll be great. Dylan Emery, how are you? I want to thank everybody for joining us live on Phantom. This is Facebook's Sports Network. Marlon said it was closer than I thought. I saw Harden get that 60-point triple-double, and I thought he was going to kill us. Yeah. When the Spurs scored 30, what did they have at halftime? They had like 35 points at halftime. It was like, oh, God, this is going to get ugly. I mean, because you can't score against this team, you're in trouble. Because you got to put up points against the Rockets. And, I mean, I mean, consistency on defense all year. They held the Rockets to 102 points. The Rockets shot 45% from the floor and 33% from three. Those are games the Rockets mostly lose. So the Spurs defense, again, second in defensive rating, really freaking good. Their offense scores 91 points. There's no rhythm. They're 6 of 24 from three. You know. Thank you, Patrick. Both under contract next season. So it's after next season that they're up? Is that what it is? Tony Cotillo, what's going on, man? How are you? Couldn't remember if it was after this year or after next year that those deals came off the books. So maybe it's after next year for Klay and Draymond. Is that what it is? Patrick, I appreciate you saying that. Yeah, so if they take... Yeah, one more year. That's right. So LeBron comes to San Antonio next year and they go up against that Goliath. See what happens. Then after next year, if Klay Thompson and Draymond Green continue to take less to stay with that team, then screw them. Don't do that. Go get money and go play somewhere else and stop bothering everybody. All right. Bring the king, Don Emery. Yeah. Again, I think he's leaving with or without Manu next year. If LeBron comes here, Manu better come back. We're actually talking about that on the show today. He better come back. All right. I could stay here all night asking questions. Honestly, where's he going? Where's he going? Where could he go and get the coaching opportunity from Pop here that's his coaching equal and have a chance to win a championship in today's NBA? So, look, a year ago I would have said no chance LeBron James comes to San Antonio. A year later, there's a chance. There's definitely a chance. All right, again, I want to thank everybody for joining us. Make sure to like the page, Jemson. Like the page, hit like, and then also give a review to the page. That'd be cool too. Check us out, Phantom. Lots of great videos. So I appreciate everybody joining us from the AT&T Center. We'll talk to you soon.